UPSC, State Public Service Commission, and SSC combined graduate level exam. Along with that, the CLAT examination. So do visit the AKS IAS Academy and also the website of AKS IAS Academy. About me, I am Sandeep Bhushan Thumala, and my credentials are: I have 10 years of teaching experience for civil services. I teach international relations and internal security and the analysis of the Hindu newspaper. And this session will definitely help you to crack prelims and mains examinations, because throughout my sessions I would be emphasizing on the keywords and the key phrases. So these are the one which are very useful for you, that is emphasizing on the keywords and the key phrases. These are the one which will make you comfortable and identify the factual, analytical, and also the conceptual questions, which will be very useful for you in regards to preliminary examinations. So therefore, by emphasizing on the keywords and the key phrases, you will be beneficial for prelims as well as mains examinations. So when we are talking about mains examinations, it is in regards to the answer writing. So answer writing is the one which is the key to score higher marks in the mains examinations, and you can score higher marks in the mains examinations, that is through your answers, when your answers are precise and concise. And your answers in the mains would certainly be precise and concise only when you are into the mode of imbibing and inculcating the keywords and the key phrases in your answers. So thereby the answers would be precise and concise, and you would score higher marks in the mains examination. So the AKS IAS Academy daily news analysis will certainly provide you better information to crack prelims and mains both for 2020 as well as 2021. And this is daily news analysis of today, that is 8th of September 2020. And I reiterate my tagline: the importance of the keyword and the key phrases, which will be certainly useful for you for the prelims, mains, and also for the interview. And before I get into the daily news analysis, I would say good morning to all, the one who are in the live and also in the live chat. Good morning to Venkat Nayak, KK Creation Nagraj, Santoshi, Praveen Kumar, Harika Yadav. A warm welcome to everyone. Good job, Janardhan has also joined. A warm welcome to all to AKS IAS Academy Daily News Analysis. And the quote for the day is: a winner is a dreamer who never gives up. And this is a quote from Nelson Mandela. So dream and then you will win. Never give up. And the news is: the government intervention in education policy should be minimal. So our Prime Minister has spoken about the educational policy. So the keyword here, what we will be focusing, and you need to identify, is the keyword, that is the educational policy. So our Prime Minister has addressed the Governors Conference. So he has gone ahead with addressing the Governors Conference, and in that Governors Conference, was in regards to the best way to implement the educational policy, and in that the Governors Conference was in regards to the best way of implementing the national educational policy, and that can be attained, I mean, it can be both by the center and the state government. So definitely the central administration and the state administration have to come together, work in tandem and coordination, so that the national education policy will be implemented in the true spirit, and the youth will be benefited. Youth will be benefited, so that the education system, the education policy in turn will definitely get into the mode of a better India and a job creating purpose. So definitely it was attended by the state education ministers and the vice chancellors. And this education policy and the educational system are important for what? They are important for fulfilling the aspiration of the country. So definitely the education policy, what is the new one which has come into existence, is in National Education Policy 2020, will definitely fulfill the aspiration of the country. So it is for the fulfilling the aspiration of the country, wherein the young India is wanting, and that is what is required in regards to the global education, wherein India will be fulfilling the global education, being as the effective implementation of the local education. That is, India's education would be represented globally. And here what I spoke about is the central and the state governments. Along with that, the central and the state governments, the local bodies should all come together, and they will, or they have the responsibility for the education system. So the local bodies, the state governments and the central governments do have the responsibility in regards to the education system in India, or to improve the education system in India. The local bodies, the state governments and the central governments do have the responsibility. And the most important thing what our Prime Minister has focused, has made a point, is that the government's interference or intervention should be minimal. So definitely in regards to the national education policy, that is the education system and the education policy, wherein the local bodies, state governments and the central governments do have the responsibility in taking or shaping up the educational system in India. In that, the government intervention should be minimal. And how can this education policy by the government can be minimal intervention? Because we do have the defense policy for India, we do have the foreign policy for India. Fine. So when we have the defense and foreign policy for India, these two, or else any India's foreign policy is irrespective of any government which comes in power, irrespective of any government which is in power. So the government's intervention will be minimal in its foreign policy. So irrespective of the government which comes into power, the education policy also should have the minimal interference and the intervention of the government, the same way what we have the minimal intervention or interference even in our India's foreign policy. So that is the point which has been emphasized by our Prime Minister Narendra Modi in regards to the educational policy. So we have here new education policy, governance conference, local bodies, state governments and central governments do have the responsibility in implementing the educational system. And before I get into the topic, Venkatesh have joined, D. Suvarna, Kondal have joined. All of you, a warm welcome to you. Bhargav has also joined. Warm welcome to AKSIS Academy, Daily News Analysis. And this policy, what we are talking about, the educational policy. So certainly the educational policy, what we are discussing today, is that it should be a collective responsibility. As I said, in regards to the local bodies, the state governments and the central government should all come together and then be as a or take the responsibility as a collectively. So this should be a collective responsibility in regards to what? In regards to implementation of the policy. This is what is necessary. That is collective responsibility for what? For implementation or successful implementing of educational policy. And as I said, that as we have the foreign policy or the defense policy, so the same way the government should not have any kind of intervention. The government of the day should not have any kind of intervention, or should have minimal intervention even in the education policy. And the other one, which is very, very important and necessary for you all to look at it as analytical point of view in regards to the education policy, what our Prime Minister has mentioned in the governance conference, education policy or else implementation of the educational policy. Our Prime Minister has spoken about implementation of education policy in governance conference. So what we will focus here is governor's role of governor in implementation of education policy. Why we are focusing on the role of governor in the implementation of education policy? Because the governors are the chancellors of almost 400 plus universities in India, and you have 400 plus universities in India, and the affiliated colleges to the university are almost 40,000 affiliated colleges. So in regards to this, what is important, what we need to focus, analytical point of view, which will be very, very useful for you as a civil servant aspirant preparing for the examination, is the role of the governor, or the crucial role the governor would play in regards to the implementation of the national education policy. In regards to the implementation of national education policy, no doubt we were talking about the local bodies, state governments and the central government should take up a tandem approach and a collective responsibility in implementing of this education policy. But if we focus from the different angle, then what is important is the governor's role, crucial role to play in the implementation, because governor is the chancellor, or the governors are the chancellors of almost 400 plus universities in India. Therefore, the governor's role would be crucial in implementing of the national education policy. Though this is the analytical part, you as a civil servant aspirant have to focus. And the policy, that is the education policy, should also focus, or would certainly focus on to transform the country into a knowledge economy. Education policy will transform our country into an educational economy, and it will tackle the brain drain what is happening in India. That is, all the knowledgeable persons or the individuals are moving out of India and they are working for other countries in different sectors. So that will make sure that, or else this education policy will make sure that the country will get into the mode, or it will transform into the knowledge economy and tackle the brain drain. By what? By making sure that it will have open local campuses of global educational institutions. So open local campuses of global educational institutions, which will be set up in India itself, so that we can transform our knowledge economy. So economy compared with knowledge, please do understand here, when you look at it, it is very simple, but the way you focus is very important. So you have the knowledge here, you have the economy. So you have the education, you have the economy. So how you can transform, or how you can use effectively education in surging of the economy or India's economy flourishing. So that is what is the necessity of the hour, that to transform the country into a knowledge economy, wherein we are linking the education with economy, so that there will be minimal intervention or interference of the government of the day in the educational policy, so that it would convert, or it would surge, or it would map up into an educational economy and tackle the brain drain. So these are the crucial points which you need to focus while you are writing the importance of the educational policy itself, comparing it with the India's foreign policy, how the government of the day has to have the minimal interference, and the governor's crucial role to play the implementation of national educational policy. And before I get into the topic, Ramya Reddy has joined. Yanjar Gowda has also joined. Prithviraj has also joined. All of you, a warm welcome to all to AKSIS Academy Daily News Analysis. And President also spoke on the educational policy. Our President of India also did talk about education policy. So we will look at what were the statements made by the President. He had made it very clear that central government and state government should increase their investment. So this is crucial again. So the increase in investment. So investments have to increase in what? Yes, in research and innovation. So our president, that is President of India, Ramnath Kovind is definitely urging both the central and state governments to increase the investment in what? Research and innovation. In research and innovation, and this is crucial at this juncture so that we can stop the brain drain. We can stop the brain drain and transform India into knowledge economy. These two would be successful only when we increase the percentage of investment in the research and innovation. And our president also did talk about the investment which is made part of the GDP in regards to education is in India 0.7 percentage in India. And when we compare with the India, that is India GDP, if we compare from India GDP, it is only 0.7 percentage. 0.7 percentage it is invested in India. And when we look at comparing it with the other countries, 2.8 percentage is the US actually invest for the education, research and innovation, and South Korea is 4.2 percentage, and then Israel is 4.3 percentage. And this is important because there could be a possibility as the question which could be framed match the following. You might think that this could be trivial, but because a president has spoken about the investments being made, it could be possibility, and it is important for you all as a civil servant aspirants to also know the amount of percentage of GDP being invested in India comparing it with the other countries. So US it is 4.2%, US is 2.8 percentage, South Korea is the 4.2, and Israel is 4.3 percentage. And what is the target? Target for India, and target what the government is targeting is 6 percentage of GDP in public education, and that remains unreachable. That remains unreachable right from the policy which was taken up in 1968. Right from the education policy which was taken up in 1968. Since then, we are unable to reach the investment in the public education. And just I will focus this. You just read. I'll read this. Please understand this. Education is the most effective means of social justice and personal advancement. It could be a question in the mains. The statement itself could be a question in the mains. Education is the most effective means of social justice and personal advancement. Discuss. Education is the most effective means of social justice and personal advancement. Discuss. There is no better investment than that in education to improve the future of society. So this could be a probable question in the mains, in the general essay. In the general essay. So do focus this way, the way we are taking up the analysis, which will be very, very useful for you in regards to the prelims as well as mains examination. So the other news is Nandu has also joined. A warm welcome to you, Nandu. Hypersonic cruise vehicle test puts India in elite club. So you have the keyword as elite club. and the other keyword is hypersonic cruise vehicle test. The keywords. So elite club. Now India is part of the elite club. And then the other keyword is hypersonic cruise vehicle test. So we will look at what is the news all about. So DRDO has gone ahead with, or it has successfully demonstrated the hypersonic air breathing scramjet technology. So DRDO has gone ahead with successfully demonstrating the hypersonic air breathing scramjet technology. Scramjet technology. So what is the technology used in this? It is a scramjet technology. We will look at it. What is scramjet? Fine. And it was with a flight test. It has gone ahead with a successful test by the hypersonic technology demonstrator vehicle. What was the vehicle which was used here? It is hypersonic technology demonstrator vehicle. So the vehicle used for the by the DRDO in regards to the testing of the hypersonic air breathing scramjet technology is hypersonic technology demonstrator vehicle. So the vehicle and the technology. The technology is scramjet technology. So scramjet is what? Engine, scramjet engine, and the vehicle is hypersonic technological demonstrator vehicle. Engine is scramjet. So we will look at what exactly it is. I will explain. And by this, India has been a select of club of nations which have actually gone ahead with demonstrating or the test being successful by various other countries. We will look at US, Russia, and then China, and then now India. And this was actually conducted in June 2019. That is demonstrator, not the flight test. It was a demonstrator which was conducted in June 2019, and the hypersonic air breathing scramjet technology was successfully demonstrated by the flight test on Monday, that is yesterday, September 6th, and it was launched where? From Wheeler Island, from the Wheeler Island of Odisha coast. This is useful information in regards to the prelims point of view and select club of nations. So this hypersonic cruise vehicle was launched using solid rocket motor. It was launched by using solid rocket motor, and which took at an altitude of 30 kilometers, and from there the aerodynamic heat shield. So after the 30 kilometers altitude, the aerodynamic heat shields were separated at hypersonic speed. So what speed this has been? At an hypersonic speed. What is hypersonic speed? Which is almost more than 5 times. That is, now this is 6 times the speed of sound. 6 times the speed of sound. The speed of sound is 344 meters per second, or 1238 kilometers per minute. So hypersonic, this is important for prelims point of view. Hypersonic speed is 6 times the speed of the sound. And what has been in this cruise missile is hypersonic combustion. That means the entire combustion which takes place has been at the hypersonic combustion is sustained, and the cruise vehicle continued with a velocity of 6 times the speed of sound. That is what I say. That is, which is nearly 2 kilometers per second for more than 20 seconds. So that means almost for 40 kilometers it has traveled with a hypersonic combustion, and the test was successful. And definitely this is a major breakthrough. Why it is a major breakthrough? Because it has been taken up by the hypersonic speed, with a hypersonic speed of 6 times the speed of sound. And here the importance is scramjet engine. Scramjet engine. So the engine here used in the test of the launch vehicle, solid rocket motor through that. Is a scramjet engine. And here in this scramjet engine, what happens is air goes inside the engine at a supersonic, not hypersonic. It is a supersonic speed. And air comes out with hypersonic speed. Conceptual understanding. Application part. In the scramjet engine technology, the air gets into the cruise missile with a supersonic speed. But when it is coming out with a hypersonic speed. That is the breakthrough here. That is what it says. It's a major breakthrough, because now the cruise missile is through the scramjet engine, which now travels at a hypersonic speed, not because the air which gets inside is a supersonic speed and the one which comes out is the hypersonic speed. And what is being used is fuel injection. So here the fuel injection and the auto ignition. So the fuel intake and the ignition. So fuel is injected into it and auto ignition. This is the major technological maturity in this scramjet. So before scramjet it was ramjet. Before scramjet engine, India had ramjet. Before that jet engines or jet, you have rocket engine. So you have different varieties of engines. Fine. So ramjet engine is the one wherein if you look at the rocket engine and jet engine has the oxygen within itself and it uses the oxygen even when it is at the atmospheric or in the atmosphere level also. It uses oxygen from itself. But in jet engines, when it is in the atmospheric level, the jet engine uses the oxygen which is outside or which is in the atmosphere. It uses that oxygen and then it propels further. Ramjet, yes, it is at a speed, supersonic. Scramjet, it is supersonic, or it is from supersonic to the hypersonic speed. And here, as we said, the air is inside, it's taken inside with a supersonic and it comes out with a hypersonic speed. And the fuel injection and auto ignition is the technological maturity which is in this scramjet. And it will work at a very high pressure. It works at a very high dynamic pressure and also at a very high temperature. So that is the greatness or the maturity of the technology in this scramjet engine. So this could be a very useful information that for the science and technology point of view, from science and technology point of view for prelims as well as mains examination. For prelims and mains examination. So it is in regards to the rocket, jet engine, rocket engine, jet engine, ramjet, and then scramjet. So this is how you need to focus as a civil servant aspirant. The possibility of the questions which could be framed in UPSC could be based on this or the technology. So the way the air gets inside with the supersonic speed and the air which comes out with a hypersonic speeds, and the fuel injection and the auto injection is the one which is the technologically matured one in the scramjet engine, and the scramjet engine works at a high dynamic pressure and a very high temperature. So these are all the technological maturity comparing it with ramjet to the scramjet, ramjet to scramjet. So about scramjet we will look at. So I was talking about scramjet. I said it is just a next version of ramjet I was saying. So scram, SC. So what do you mean by SC? SC is supersonic combustion. Supersonic combustion of ramjet is equal to scramjet. I think now you are getting the point. The supersonic combustion. So what is the technology maturity of the technology in the scramjet? It is the combustion. How it is combusting. That is the movement, everything, the engine, the combustion of the engine. So what did we discuss about it? That is in regards to the hypersonic combustion which takes place here in this scramjet. Hypersonic combustion. So this is important. So it is an advanced or a new variant of the ramjet air breathing jet engine. So ramjet is what? Air breathing. Air breathing. Please do understand this. Air breathing. But when I spoke about rocket, here the oxygen is within the, or the rocket engine carries the oxygen, but it does not take the oxygen from the atmosphere. It does not. But here it is air breathing. That means it takes the oxygen, it sucks the oxygen, it pulls the oxygen from the air. That is what the jet engine. I did say about the rocket and the jet engine, the difference. That is why it is in regards to the expenditure also it is low. I mean it is comparatively it is beneficial, the jet engine or ramjet or scramjet. So scramjet is an improvement over ramjet engine, and it operates hypersonic speeds as I discussed all that, and allows the supersonic combustions. And as I said, scramjet combustion, ramjet is nothing but the scramjet, and it is designed by, scramjet is designed by ISRO. And here the scramjet engine, as I said, it uses hydrogen as fuel. It uses hydrogen as fuel, and it uses oxygen as atmospheric air. For what? As the oxidizer, which is required for combustion, the engine. So please do understand this. The fuel is hydrogen, oxygen is used as the atmospheric air, or it is used as an oxidizer, and the speed of this scramjet is 6 Mach. So 6 times the speed of this sound. And which are the other countries? As I said, India is now part of the elite group. So earlier it was Russia, United States and China, and now we have that elite group in regards to this scramjet engine with a hypersonic speed, technology. So the successfully flight tested in regards to the hypersonic technology. India has now entered or joined the missile club, which is the elite club. It is the elite missile club. So this is a missile. So look at here, this is a turbojet. You have the technology here wherein the compression takes place and the combustion and the expansion. So this is a technology that is a scramjet wherein the speed is greater than the 6 Mach, and only the other three countries have that technology, hypersonic technology, in regards to the missile is Russia, US and China. So these are all very, very useful for you for the civil services preparation. And Azmat Khan has joined, Srikanth Yadav has joined. A warm welcome to both of you to AKS IAS Academy Daily News Analysis. And there is another news which talks about August rainfall highest since 1926. So this you can take it in regards to the monsoons for prelims point of view. So when we are talking about this, we would focus who has given this data. So the data is from the Indian Meteorological Department. So Indian Meteorological Department for 2020 rainfall, it has come up with the data, and it says that the August 2020 rainfall is highest since 1926. So it was only in the year 1926 we had such a huge above normal rainfall, and in 1926 the rainfall was 32.7 centimeters, which was 27% more than the normal for that month in 1926. And in August 1926 the rainfall recorded was 34.8 centimeters, exceeding the normal of 33, and now here it is 32.7 centimeters, and in 1926 it was 34.8 centimeters. So right from June to September, if you look at June to September, India has registered almost more than greater than 7% of more rainfall than the normal. And what is important is, now again there would be retreating monsoon. There would be retreating monsoon from September 15 or September 17th onwards. So definitely there would be more rains again in the third week of September. But the amount of rainfall which was highest in August 2020, the last time when it was high was in the year 1926, and the retreating monsoon is again from the September 15 or September 17th. And what are the reasons for this heavy rainfall, which was earlier in 1926 and now 2020? What are the reasons? So the reasons are because of these several long-lasting low pressure systems. So we had long-lasting low pressure system. So for geography point of view, monsoons, this is important. Long lasting low pressure systems and rain bearing winds. So you have the winds which carry the rain, or the clouds which carry the rain. So the winds which are carrying the clouds which have the rain, that are formed in Bay of Bengal. So the entire moisture which is in the Bay of Bengal, it is carried by the winds, and those winds which are rain bearing winds. So because of the long lasting low pressure systems, from my side it is clear, Venkat, because even I am viewing it in another mobile. It is very clear. I've checked now. I'm checking directly. I mean, immediate live. I'm checking my class also, it is clear. Probably we'll see. So the long lasting low pressure system and the rain bearing winds that are formed in Bay of Bengal, and those they are vigorously traveling. Those winds, rain bearing winds, are vigorously traveling from Bay of Bengal to southeastern coast up to northwest India, and in a typical monsoon season there would be 12 to 13 long period average. That means average of the long period average will be 12 to 13. These are all what you say factual or data based information, and this year normally it is so, and this year we had 6. I mean this year in the month of August 2020 we had long period average which has lasted for several days. That is why the rainfall in August 2020 was highest since 1926. So that is why we have taken up the reasons. So we need to know the reasons for the what do you say conceptual point of view, which could be important for the mains, and the surplus rain which has taken place, which the states have experienced, are Rajasthan, Gujarat, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Kerala, Telangana, Chhattisgarh and Odisha. So these are the states which have above normal rainfall in the month of August. And now we look at the climate change, how climate change also has impacted the above normal rainfall in the month of August, because we had 6 long period average of rainfall which was of a longer spell. So the long period of heavy rain followed by dry periods are features of climate change. I will explain you. It is a concept here. So how can you consider that there is an experience of climate change? That is, you are having long period of heavy rains and immediately it is followed by dry periods. Please do understand. You have long period heavy rains followed by dry periods is nothing but India is experiencing climate change. And these two are the general change in monsoon pattern over India. This could be a probable question. I mean, all this explanation could be part of your short notes, important points in the short notes for your mains in regards to the monsoons or in regards to the climate change, how it is impacting the monsoon pattern over India. Climate change and it impact on the monsoon patterns over India. And this is an information. So IMD has launched what? Urban flood forecasting services. So the Indian Meteorological Department has launched urban flood forecasting services in Mumbai and Chennai, and it is further next it is it would extend. Now it is Mumbai and Chennai, it would extend it to Bangalore and Kolkata, but as of now it has launched the urban flood forecasting services. These keywords are all very, very important for you all when you are actually writing an answer, and it would be impressive so that you can score higher marks. And we will look at the spread of rainfall across India. So in northwest India it was 10% minus, that is less rainfall than the normal. In central India it has 17% plus central India, that is above surplus, and in South India it is 20% plus, that is surplus, and in Northeast India it was normal, exactly normal rainfall. normal rainfall predicted by the IMD. So the Northwest India 10% minus, Central India 17% as surplus, Southern India 20% as surplus, and then Northeast India it is normal. And the other reason we will look at why we are looking along with this low period of heavy rains and then dry periods of climate change, what are the other reasons why we have seen increased rainfalls? As we discussed here, it is because of the long lasting low pressure system and rain bearing winds. Long lasting low pressure systems and rain bearing winds. Long lasting low pressure system and rain bearing winds, we did consider these as the reasons for the heavy rainfall. And now we look at the third reason is the cooler than normal condition where in equatorial central Pacific Ocean is contributing to the increased rainfalls in India, especially in the central India and southern India. That is, long lasting low pressure system is one of the reasons for the heavy rainfall or the increased rainfall, and then rain bearing winds which have originated or developed in the Bay of Bengal and they have got into the entire India. And the other reason is cooler than normal. Please understand, it is cooler than normal. That means actually it has to be a warmer in the equatorial central Pacific region, but it is cooler than the normal conditions in the equatorial central Pacific region or ocean. That is why it is contributing to increased rainfall. So we have discussed the reasons. We have also looked at the standard contribution of rainfall across India, Northwest India, Central India, Southern India, Northeast India. Fine. And how the climate change, we can take it into consideration that yes, climate change is, we can experience that in India. That is how, by the long lasting period of heavy rain and then followed by extended dry periods. Extended dry periods. So these are the proof that the climate change India is experiencing. And the other news is that RBI sets sectorial norms. So the keyword here is sectoral norms. For what? Sectorial norms for resolution. Resolution of what? For what? Resolution for what? Resolution for COVID-19 related stressed assets. So the RBI has come up with sectorial norms for resolution of COVID-19 related stress assets. So these are all what? It is sectorial norms for resolution of COVID-19 related stressed assets. That means because of the COVID-19, because of the national lockdown, because of the damage to the economic activity, no business revival, that is why the assets have been stretched. Thereby the defaulters, non-performing assets have been blooming. So for that the RBI has set up norms. Those are sectorial norms. Yesterday we discussed about priority sector lendings. Yesterday, last class, yesterday we did discuss about priority sector lendings. Today we are talking about sectorial norms for resolution of COVID-19 related stress assets. And the RBI has come up with what? It has come up with 5 5 what? Financial ratios and sector specific thresholds, that is norms. For how many sector specific? There are 26 sectors which have been considered that the RBI to resolve the stressed assets. So by taking the 5 financial ratios. So the keyword here is financial ratios. 5 financial ratios and sector specific thresholds. These are the 2 norms taken up by the RBI. And when we look at this resolution has been taken up by the recommendations given by a committee that is called as the recommendations are being given by a committee that is called as KV Kamath Committee. So I hope you all know about KV Kamath. Can I know who is KV Kamath? Because I did discuss in the previous sessions also. So KV Kamath Committee has recommended the resolution for the stressed assets. So based on the recommendations, mostly all the recommendations have been accepted by the RBI or the government, and they will be implemented in specific sectors, that is 26 sectors. The recommendations will be implemented, that is in automobiles, power, tourism, cement, chemicals, gems and jewelry, logistics, mining, manufacturing, real estate and shopping, and the rest of the among 26 sectors. The recommendations will be implemented to overcome or to have a resolutions for the stressed assets which have been experienced during the COVID-19 pandemic situations. So 5 financial ratios, 5 financial ratios and sector specific threshold. These are the 2 keywords which you need to focus, and the recommendations of KV Kamath Committee. So KV Kamath Committee has recommended for which among the following? There could be a question in the prelims. Which among the following committees have recommended the resolutions for resolution of COVID-19 related stress assets? It is definitely KV Kamath Committee. Please do take it into consideration. Prelims point of view, economy. And a further understanding, if you wanted to look at, so we will look at what are the key 5 financial ratios. So I said 5 financial ratios and sector specific thresholds. So what are the key 5 financial ratios which the committee has suggested and the government RBI has taken into consideration? That is total outside liabilities, total debt, current ratio, debt service coverage ratio, average debt service coverage ratio. So it is the total outside liability, it is in regards to the total debt, that is the loan or total debt, or it is EBITDA. What do you mean by EBITDA? It is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization. I repeat once again, total debt or EBITDA. What do you mean by EBITDA? Because this could be again a probable question in the prelims. Which among the following is incorrect in regards to the EBITDA? Is earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization. So what do you mean by amortization? It is the payment, or else you are paying the debts. You are paying the debts before, or in a partial, or you wanted to clear it in a specific time. So it is all the earnings before interest, tax, depreciation and amortization. So new keyword you have learnt here, EBITDA, earning before interest, taxes, depreciation and amortization. And the other, the third financial ratios are current ratio, which is current assets divided by current liabilities. So assets divided by liabilities, that is, you have the income and the expenditure. And the fourth one is debt service coverage ratio, and the fifth one is average debt service coverage ratio. It is here you have debt service coverage ratio, and again on that they will calculate the average debt service coverage ratio. Yes, D. Suvarna says that former chief of New Development Bank BRICS, and also he was ICICI. He was also part of ICICI also. New Development Bank Chairman, RBI set up a panel expert committee under KV Kamath in the beginning of August month. Yes, absolutely, very good, D. Suvarna. And these are important for prelims and for mains. Conceptual understanding of financial ratios. Probably there could be a question on financial ratios. Then you will understand, or you will definitely think about how could UPSC frame this question in regards to financial ratios. It is because RBI has set up the norms for resolution of COVID-19 stressed assets through 5 financial ratios and sector specified threshold. So 5 financial ratios. These are all very important. If you are focusing this way, I can bet you are in the right track. And we'll just look at what is about financial ratios, because there could be a possibility that the question can be made, and this is all additional information I'm providing. So the financial ratio, as we discussed, 5 financial ratios. What does this financial ratio, how does it help? So it helps in interpreting the raw data. So the data which is present with the company, it looks at the data, it interprets the data of a company's finance so that it will get a better picture of its performance. So why to interpret? Why to interpret? It will interpret the company's or raw data of the company's finances so that you will have a better picture of the performance of the company. So you will have the better picture of the performance of the company. That is why the financial ratios help. The main intention of it is to interpret the raw data so that it will be useful for having a better picture of performance. And so the first one is interpret, and the second one is measure. So what does it measure? It measures the relationship between different numbers. So what numbers are we talking about? The data. So definitely it will measure the relationship between different numbers of the given raw data. So measure, it will interpret, it will measure, and it will determine. What does it determine? It determines that how a company is financed. It determines how the company is in profitability, whether it is in profitability, whether the company, it determines the company's liquidity, that is the amount, and it determines the solvency, that how poor it is. So it determines the company, how company is financed, how or what is the profitability of the company, what is the liquidity of the company, and the solvency, that is whether it is in the debts. So how it will help? It will help in three ways. So it will interpret the raw data, it will measure the relationship between the data, it will determine the company, whether it is, how it is financed, and the profitability of the company, liquidity, and the solvency. So these are all very useful for you for the prelims point of view. If you look at the newspaper, so this is what it is in the newspaper. You might just read it. RBI sets sectorial norms for resolution of COVID-19 related stress assets. Fine. But how far you are focusing on the financial ratios, key financial ratios. So that is where the UPSC might focus. Savani says to make recommendation for the norms of stress loans. Yes, absolutely. So this is how you need to get into the mode of emphasizing on the keywords and the key phrases, wherein those keywords and the key phrases will be key for you to clear prelims, mains, and also be comfortable in the interview, that is in the personality test. And we now will take up the question. With governors, and this is part of what we discussed, with governors being the chancellors of the 400 plus universities in India, they have a crucial role to play the implementation of NEP, critically evaluate. Because we did talk about local bodies. See, here the question I am talking about is in regards to the governor. But I did talk about the local bodies, state governments, and the central governments, which have to have coordinated responsibility. I did say this, coordinated responsibility. But again, the other side of it is the governors being the chancellors of 400 plus universities in India. So does the governors, or the role or the critical role of governor in implementation of the national education policy in India, critically evaluate. So I hope you can write this answer, because we have discussed at length in regards to the first topic, what the analysis what we have taken in particular in regards to the governors conference, which was attended by our Prime Minister, and he has made it very clear about the importance of education policy. So to recapitulate, so this we have looked at from prelims as also from mains point of view. That is, focus was on education or education policy itself. And here from science and technology point of view, we did discuss about scramjet, how it will work, that is scramjet engine. We discussed about supersonic speed, hypersonic speed. Fine. So it is very useful for science and technology. And this we did discuss in regards to the monsoon. And then in regards to the IMD, the projections which has said about 1926, comparing it with 2020, the rainfall. And then we have looked at the reasons for heavy rainfall, we have looked at. And then we have also looked at how we can say that there is a climate change which is prevailing in India. We did talk about that. So very important for prelims as well as mains examinations. And then this is we did discuss in regards to the economy point of view, in regards to the resolution for COVID-19 related stressed assets. And these are all in regards to the sectorial norms we did discuss about, and the financial ratios, which the concepts are very useful for you in regards to prelims, and a better understanding in regards to the mains examination while you're writing an answer in regards to the stressed assets or sectorial norms. So I hope this session, that is AKS IAS Academy Daily News Analysis, was important, knowledgeable, and then it was definitely an informative one, I suppose. So I would say a big thank you and good luck and best wishes for you. And then do like the video, share the video, and then subscribe the video in regards to AKS IAS English channel. And then do visit AKS IAS website, and then subscribe the Telegram link of AKS IAS Academy also. And in regards to the daily news analysis, we would again meet tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. And I would say once again, do stick to your consistency in throughout your preparation. Stick to your schedule of your preparation, and also do take care of your physical health and mental health. And then see you tomorrow. Thank you and good luck. And then see you tomorrow at 7:30 a.m. Thank you all.